Hello listener, you're welcome to my Beautifier Community Youth Uganda and Recovery Chapel Uganda. I am your host, Jamesboy Imani, and today I'm going to speak about the topic gambling destroys. Gambling destroys. Before I go far, I would like to dedicate this episode to my blood brother, biological brother. He's called Felix. Commonly known as One Cross. He's also a gospel music artist in Uganda and also an inspirational musician. I thank him because he inspired me to do this topic. Out of his observation, he told me that he really sees need to address the issue of gambling because it has really destroyed lives, and you really see many lives getting totally off track and lacking purpose because of gambling. Now, gambling is something that some people are actually involved in, but some take it lightly, especially those who are not really actively involved in it, and thereby sometimes could underestimate the great risks that come along with getting addicted to gambling. Gambling is a behavior that is most likely to a greater extent supposed to result into addiction. And before I go far, I would like to read two verses. One is Proverbs chapter 28 verse 20, which says, "The trustworthy person gets a rich reward, but a person who wants a quick riches will get into trouble." And Proverbs chapter 28 verse 22, which says, "Greedy people try to get rich quick, but they don't realize they are headed for poverty." Now, the biggest question is, what is gambling? Basically, gambling it is to take a risky action in the hope of a good result or outcome. This is the playing of chance games for money. The greatest way in which we know gambling is actually through playing games, but lucky kind of games, where you just do it for chance in order to win big in the end. Gambling can also be the betting or staking of something of value, well aware of the possibility of losing it, with the hope of gaining something bigger. So gambling is where you put in something but expect to get something extraordinarily bigger than what you put in, but also well aware of the chances or risks of losing even this small that has been put at stake. Now, we have many examples of gambling. We have things like lotteries, sports betting. For example, we have horse betting, football betting, dog races, stock market, things like life insurance. We have card games, we have casino games, for example, the roulette. Also, we have games like pool tables, games and snooker, and many more. So gambling is just basically an activity where we have two people on two sides who decide to take something with the hopes of winning, or sometimes it could actually be one person betting, but usually it has to have like two sides, because gambling is a two-way, so either you win or lose. Now, gambling is a form of habit developed as a result of fear. The reason is because it is done trusting on luck and chance to achieve goals instead of having faith in God. Now, what we know is, if anything is done without the faith in God, but with human efforts to make our lives better, then basically the opposite of faith in God is fear. So gambling is something that someone decides to uh, determine or create their own destiny through luck and avoiding hard work and patience. It is a lifestyle of trying to use shortcuts to achieve success, and it is a behavior promoted by Satan. God can't promote such a kind of behavior. Gambling is a habit that has been practiced for many years, for many centuries. Yeah, and it has now taken new twists with different innovative forms, especially in our times, the times that we live in. Now, regardless of the changing dynamics of the gambling, deep down the effects are all still the same. We now have even online gambling. So someone would just sit in their sitting room or bedroom and still be able to take part in gambling activity online. So it has been made that easier, which makes it actually more dangerous to especially the people who are actually victims. Now, to a greater extent, the dangerous effects of gambling are far more than the good. In fact, if you're to decide to choose the good out of gambling, they are very, very few. They are just counted by the fingertip, very few. And I believe the only advantage of gambling, it's maybe through gambling you get to network and meet new people. Those are especially sports kind of gambling. Also, there are seasonal wins where you might get lucky and win. But the negatives are far much more than the uh, positives. And the negatives are really damaging to the individual involved. The person who is actively involved in gambling and who now is an addict of gambling is really damaged by this habit, as we are yet to find out. Now, we have to assess or analyze the dangerous effects of gambling. Now, before I go to the dangerous effects, I'll read to you a verse. This is 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 9. It says, "But people who long to be rich fall into temptation and are trapped by many foolish and harmful desires that plunge them into ruin and destruction." Now, here we realize greed to be wealthy or rich through wrong, quick shortcuts always ends into trouble, and the individual is ruined and his life is destroyed. Now, gambling addiction can also be known as problem gambling, or you could call it gambling disorder or compulsive gambling. So, these are some of the dangerous effects of problem gambling, or you could say gambling addiction. One, there's trouble concentrating at work or school, or you could say low performance, because the individual is focused on only the gambling. It reaches a time when the mind only thinks about one thing: how to gamble, where to get money, and what time to again go back to this maybe gambling game. So all the minds and the concentration levels go low because of that distraction, and now work or school is affected negatively, where we find low performance. There's also sleeping difficulty, because here we see it, gambling is actually a mind issue. So you imagine if something is so much on your mind, you really don't have time to even sleep, because it's the only thing in your mind. And not only that, it can also bring depression, because let's say you lose the game, or maybe you have failed to get the money to take part into the next game. That thing can lead to depression, and especially if you have a series of losses, you can imagine how damaging it is to the individual, because you're losing both property and even money. There is also crime, Sometimes crime can rise up because resources could get depleted, where you use up all your resources and now you still have to get into the gambling because you're now addicted. So you could decide now to steal, steal the money or steal someone's property to sell it, turn it into money and go back and bet. So crime is highly likely for a person who has a gambling problem. Suicide is also very common in gamblers, problem gamblers, because let's say, for example, you've lost a very big amount of money, which maybe you had borrowed or maybe you had stolen. In whichever way, it makes you feel like your life now can't be comfortable. Or maybe the threats, maybe you imagine took a big loan, or you've staked something so big that it gives you guilt and you see you can't lose, you can't live without it. You bet your whole life, you staked your whole life in this. We've had so many stories, even in Uganda here, we've had people jump off buildings outside casinos after losing big sums of money. Uh, Anger, it brings about bad mood and anger, because you imagine if you're always on tension, you're not sure if you're going to win, or maybe you've lost, and all that, your mood gets affected. And also anger has also bad effects by itself. There's guilt and regret, especially if you keep losing. Most of the people who participate in gambling have reached a level they regret it, but now they're like slaves. They're in bondage. They want out, but there's no way out. They reach a level where their mind is fully controlled, and they don't seem to have enough energy or the ability to pull themselves out. This brings more guilt and more regret, and later this can bring depression, and even, as I had said earlier, even suicide is possible. So there's also relationship breakdown, because this ruins a lot. Gambling, first of all, could take time. If you're a married man or married woman, you no longer have time for your children. You don't have time for your spouse. You don't have time for your work. You don't have time for any loved one. It becomes the number one issue in your mind. And that also ruins relationships, because also people get fed up of this, people around you. There is also not only losing relationships, but also important events and activities are actually missed too, because you can't serve two masters at the same time. So if you're focused on the gambling thing, you don't really have time for family sessions, meeting. So you end up losing a lot of important activities that would have actually been useful in your life, just because of this destructive habit. There is even cancelling or postponing of buying important things in order to gamble. So let's say, for example, you had planned to invest and your money into something very important, or to buy something, to purchase something important. You sometimes reach a level and you postpone, you say, maybe I'll do that tomorrow, because for today you want to use that money for gambling, and when tomorrow comes you don't even have that money because it's already lost. Because the truth is, the probability of losing is higher than the probability of winning, and that's a fact in gambling. Now, there's also thinking often about gambling and making plans to gamble, that is passively. So your mind full time is occupied with things to do with gambling. You can imagine what a disastrous level that can be. Then also, there's this thing where you return to gambling again and again after losing. So the more someone loses, the more it pushes them to go back and stake more, so that they can try to recoup back what they lost. And instead, they lose even that. So you imagine this becomes now a chain. It becomes a chain, you keep going back and losing, going back and losing. You totally destroy your life. Then there is general physical health breakdown. All this breaks you down. Gambling itself puts you on tension. It can even cause heart disease, mental breakdown, physical exhaustion because lack of sleep, or maybe following up these games, movement, activities, all those things are dangerous effects of gambling, and many more, by the way. Now, gambling, as we all know, everything good or everything bad always has a symptom. Now, in order to tell whether you have a gambling problem or someone, your friend or relative, has a gambling problem, these are the few tips to look out for. The first, there is need to gamble with increased amount to feel excited. Now, if you begin gambling with a particular amount, each time you feel excitement, if you by spending more. So the more you spend, the more excited you feel. So you can imagine how dangerous this thing is like. And this is a result of a chemical which is called dopamine. So that is a dopamine effect. It's also found in all the other addictive behaviors, including alcohol and drugs, and even sometimes sexual addiction. So that chemical is released every time you feel like you need to spend more too, so it reaches a level for you to receive a better level of excitement. You need to spend more money or take something greater for you to have what we call a good feeling. So that is a very terrible thing, and that's a symptom. The next one is restlessness or irritability when trying to stop gambling. So it reaches a time an individual could notice that, you know what, this habit is destroying my life. But the problem is, every time they try to pull away, they feel restless and feel irritability. You don't feel comfortable or settled. Your mind is not at peace, especially every time you try to stop gambling, and you always find yourself back again. So there are repeated unsuccessful attempts to stop. You keep trying to stop, but you keep going back. You try to control or reduce gambling, but you still go back. That means it has become a problem. Also, trying to get back what you lost, for example, trying to get back lost money by gambling more. So the more you lose, the more you go back. That's already a symptom that you have a problem. So you're trying to do what we call chasing losses. Whatever you lose, you want to get it back, and even make a profit greater than that. So one thing, the truth is that gambling is a problem once you notice this kind of signs. And all these signs prove only one thing, that you've become a slave to this gambling. 2 Peter chapter 2 verse 19 says, you are a slave to what controls you. So we realize that once you have reached a level and gambling is controlling you, you have become a slave to it. And this is exactly what the devil likes. The devil likes to keep people in bondage. And gambling is one of his avenues by which he keeps so many in bondage and destruction and death in the end. Because we all know the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy. So there's nothing good that the devil can give you. He can give you something that is called temporary happiness or satisfaction, but the greater loss, he hides it from you. You realize it later when you're already in a trap, and it becomes hard for you to come out of it. Now, first of all, problem gambling has some causes, but all these causes, I believe, are under psychological related problems. So most people who are addicted to gambling or any other addiction, it all begins with psychological problems. For example, anxiety, depression, and fear. So gambling is something that you enter because you're afraid of being poor or being broke, and maybe sometimes you go to it because you're going through a lot of things and it causes you depression, maybe lack of money, people are abusing you, some people are looking down on you, maybe you're being fired. That depression pushes you to gambling. And even anxiety, all these things are psychologically caused. So you also have to know that even as you are in gambling, that you have to look out for the root cause why you think you joined it. Especially if you want to beat something, you have to first find out what caused it, so that you attack that thing that caused it to weaken this problem that you have. Now, what are the solutions to problem gambling? These are very simple solutions, but they work. The first is pray and spend time with God. Once you give God your priority, time, everything else goes. Because when you spend time with God, whatever is from the devil can no longer be in your life. So you have a choice to make, because the devil, if you give the devil your mind, he will occupy it and make you a slave. You'll be in bondage. But you could make a choice to replace whatever is a negative in your mind and give God that time. Spend time with God, pray a lot, um, read the Bible, uh, just do things that are around God, associate with people who are Christians, watch Christian programs, listen to sermons, read books, godly books. Just pray and spend time with God. Give God ample time in your life and your mind, and you will see a tremendous change. The next one is keep yourself busy with constructive activities. As we all know, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. So the devil really likes to attack a mind which is doing nothing. Yeah, and he plants his negative ideas. So if you keep yourself busy, it's not a must that whatever you do must be something that earns you money, but something that is constructive and in the end is building in your life and building even people around you and even making God proud. You will not have time for negative kind of habits and activities. Instead, you would even use the little resources or whatever resources you have to build and do constructive things rather than waste and wash down everything down the drain and then regret later. The next one is if things are too big for you and you see there's no way out completely, you also have to seek help. That is called the support system. We are created to be social beings and we all need one another here and there. So it's very important that you don't stand alone and die alone or feel shame and guilt. You need to open up and seek for help and a support system from people you trust or professional experts. One or another, you need the help. Family, you need the church, you need the professionals, you need an all-around team that will help you stand. Of course, the other thing is you need to move with less money, because if money is your problem and having it in plenty becomes a trigger, because wherever you move, the devil will try to find things to trigger your mind back to the addictive thing of gambling. So move with enough money. Plan for what you're supposed to do. Don't move with excessive money or things that are very valuable that you don't need. So move with a purpose, go to a particular place, have a target, and move with enough or the required things that you need for whatever assignment or task you have ahead of your day. Then stop self-blame and guilt for past mistakes. Guilt and blame keeps you trapped and keeps you in bondage, and sometimes as a result of this you just say, you know what, I have nothing to lose, let me just go back and lose everything because I've already wasted everything. Give yourself a chance to be a better person. Stop self-blame and guilt for past mistakes, what you lost, the mistakes you did, everything you staked. Forget it and forgive yourself, because if God can forgive you, you ought to forgive yourself and move on and focus for better, because once you change from the negative, the best is yet to come. And sometimes once you change, most times once you change from the bad, God multiplies the good. So whatever you might have lost in 5 years, God could give it back to you all in 1 year. So we should trust God and stop the self-blame and guilt. Talk about it, open up. That is also part of helping you heal. Openly talk about it. Don't keep quiet. Find your purpose in life by working on your talents and gifts. Of course, purpose is when you use your talents and gifts to serve other people and serve God. We serve God by serving other people. So find your purpose by first finding your talent and gift. And I believe once you find your talent and gift, then you already have something constructive to do, and it will replace the negative habits with positive habits. You know, use your talents and gifts for something positive and constructive, something godly, something that will build others, something that will make community and society better. So use your gifts and talents to do something good that you will be remembered for. Now, the ending verse for this is in Galatians chapter 5 verse 1. I would like to close with this verse, Galatians chapter 5 verse 1. It says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." So we all know Jesus Christ set us free at the cross. You know, we are now free. Let us not give the devil again an opportunity to take us back from where Jesus got us from. We are free, and you should continue being free. So when the Son Jesus Christ sets you free, you're free indeed, and no power of the devil has authority over your life. No power of addiction, whichever addiction, has authority over your life. You are a slave to nobody because you're a child of God and you are supposed to live free. So trust God, come to God, you know, welcome God in your life, and He will break all these chains in your life. And He will give you freedom, He will give you peace, He will give you abundant provision, and He will make your life satisfied, where you will not need to seek or live by chance or opportunity and luck, but you live by faith and trust in God and God only. So till the next episode, I wish you a blessed time as you meditate on this. And don't forget to give your life to Christ, because in Jesus Christ is where we find everything and total satisfaction. Jesus Christ is the answer for all the problems that are facing this world today. God bless you. Bye-bye.